Hey, it's Drybear. We're continuing our starter class guide series for World of Warcraft Dragonflight, today with the Rogue class, and we'll give you a rundown of how the class works, an overview on all the functionality, the abilities you should be aware of. We'll talk about the class talent tree and each of the specializations, and we'll give you builds that you can import directly into your game to get started in playing with Rogue. This guide is for people that are switching to a new class for Dragonflight or are coming back to the game, as many people are, coming back to the game to get a refresher on how things work so you can jump right in and start having fun. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say hi. Rogue is super unique and very fun. They have a lot of control in the game. They have some good CC. They have a lot of utility with going into stealth or being able to shroud for their team. And their builds have become, in the last few years, have become quite disparate. There was a time where Rogue specs were kind of very similar. They had subtle differences, different abilities and functionality, but they've done a great job over the last 4 years or so separating these specs out to make them feel very different and unique. Kind of like how Mage has very different elements and different schools of magic, the Rogue kind of has that same feel. So Assassination, they all play off the same Rogue toolkit, but Assassination focuses on mostly like procs and poisons, venoms, proccing off your abilities. Outlaw is this new spec they've been iterating on for a good while that I really like, that plays off actual weapons instead of daggers, axes, maces, swords, fist weapons. They have an RNG mechanic, which is pretty fun, and they use guns and traps and things like that. And then Subtlety is focused more on big burst, coming out of stealth, having back attacks and backstabs. Is kind of your more traditional Rogue ambush style with Subtlety. So you can take your pick on each one of these. They're all about the same for leveling. There's some pros and cons for each of them on leveling up and getting up to 70. But for the most part, they're all pretty effective, and you have some pretty straightforward ways to play them. Now I'll start with some basics of the class overview so I understand how they work. They are a dual resource class. Not in the traditional sense of, having to manage it, but you'd have to pay attention to it. So the core here is they are an energy class. So you have this energy that you can build up here. There's going to be different ways you can modify how fast this regenerates, how fast it comes back, but it is a resource that you have full of, and then you're going to walk up and you're going to use the energy, and most of the things that use the energy will give you combo points, depending on how your UI is set up. Now, you will have finishing moves that all have the ability to consume combo points for bonus or scaling effects. And that's the basics of Rogue. You spend energy and you spend energy to get combo points. And then based on how many combo points you have, you consume that on finishing moves to get bonuses. There's definitely ways you can play around it. Some specs like Assassination and Subtlety will play around being able to go into stealth, and then how you manage and use your combo points and your energy and your cooldowns is the core of the Rogue playstyle. Being a stealth class gives you a lot of really cool opportunities that other classes don't have, right? So being able to stealth allows you to sneak in. If you don't want to kill mobs along the way, you can sneak to the back of a cave, get the quest item you need, sneak out. You also have ways to instantly go invisible with Vanish. So you can avoid big pulls, or if you got too many and you got your quest done, drop aggro, disappear, you're out of there. So there's a lot of flexibility in dealing with that. If you're playing in groups, Shroud is also super nice. This will give stealth to targets, friendly targets that are nearby. Very useful in Mythic Plus for skipping packs. So just having stealth in general makes you a unique asset that won't really have any other. That kind of effect won't exist with other classes just because you have the ability to play around it. A core part of Rogue is their poisons. They have, based on their spec and what they've selected, they have the ability to apply poisons to their weapon. This has gone through many iterations over the last 18, 19 years the game has been around. But the way that it works in Dragonflight is you have two categories of poison. You have lethal poison, and then you have non-lethal poison. You can't have two of one kind. So keep that in mind. So your base kit, especially like Assassination has some extra ones in there. You can also pick up some in the class talent tree, like numbing poison and atrophic poison. But if you read the poison effect, it'll tell you whether it's a lethal or a non-lethal. So you want to make sure that you have a lethal and a non-lethal equipped at all times. For leveling, you're probably just going to be running instant poison, which is a lethal, and crippling poison, which is a non-lethal. You have anti-healing with wound poison, usually best for PvP. You can pick up numbing poison, you can pick up atrophic poison, and you also have some other poisons you can use in assassination, things like that. So make sure you have 2 poisons on at all times to make sure that you're roguing it up. You also have tons of CC. Cheap shot stuns the target and gives you a point as well. You can gouge the target for a disorient. You can blind the target for another disorient at range, which is super useful. You can stealth in and you can sap targets as well, which is really cool. And you just have all these different ways that you can move around and be very tricksy with all 3 of the specs. They all have that functionality, which is super cool. Now let's go into a little bit more on the class. We'll go through the class talent tree. If you didn't know, in Dragonflight, you have 2 talent trees that you are spending points in. The left talent tree is your class talent tree. This is more or less the same for every single spec. So across the board, they will all have this class tree. Sometimes there's subtle differences when different abilities are available for that spec, but for the most part, it is the same. So this is kind of like your core skill set for the class. And then on the right is your talent tree for your specialization. So this is specific to the specialization that you're running. You'll have different abilities and effects that go along with this talent tree that affect that specialization in general. So because it's shared, we'll go through the class talent tree first. Then we'll go through each of the specializations on the talent trees and give you a build that you can just import directly into your game. It'll be down in the description. You just hit the Control-C, Control-V, drop it in here, give it a name, and you are good to go. Starting with the top of the tree, you have a lot of abilities, more so than most classes actually, to choose from up here. And you're gonna wanna take most of these. It gets less interesting towards the bottom. This is probably one of my least favorite class trees in the game, just because it doesn't really, I mean, there's a lot of choice up here. There's not too much choice down here. It's like whether or not you're going with the Kyrian Echoing Reprimand and how you're gonna modify it. But for the most part, it kind of gets very straightforward here. There's a lot of really cool tools you're gonna wanna have while leveling. Obviously at the top, Shiv is super useful. I would recommend picking it up. Then you have some CC options with Blind and Sap. Very core to the Rogue toolkit, you're gonna want those. Defensive options with Evasion gives you dodge chance, so you can't be hit by physical attacks. Cloak of Shadows, so you can't be hit by magical attacks. Between these two, you can be super tanky when you need to. I would recommend getting Nimble Fingers. It modifies your self-healing ability. Crimson Vial, which is on 30-second cooldown, gives you health. And this means it'll also reduce the energy cost of it, so you can actually use these pretty regularly as well. Gouge is nice. It's super good for slowing down a target that's chasing you. You will want to get Feint as well, and it will give you some nice defense. And then I don't know how you'd level without Shadow Step. It's a super nice mobility. This one will blink to the target, and if you get Shadow Step twice, which I think is only Assassination, I have to go double check. But you basically can blink to the target, get behind it, and this doesn't break stealth either, so you'll be able to kind of stay in stealth and get on it. But you can use this to just blink between targets. And then there's also ways that you can, modify this and play around it. And towards the bottom, you'll probably be seeing Echoing Reprimand with Assassination the most. You can run it with Outlaw if you'd like. There's some benefits to it, but for the most part, Assassination, I think, benefits the most from Echoing Reprimand. And then Shadow Dance is also nice if you want to pick it up. Though there's a lot of nice bonuses here that you can benefit from while leveling, and you might see more of this later on. A few talents to be aware of. You do want to get Iron Stomach. Between Nimble Fingers and Iron Stomach, it makes it so that your Crimson Vial is actually pretty useful, and you can use it regularly without making the cost of it too high. And this also affects healing potions and health stones if you have any of those as well. You do also want to get Blackjack. This means that after you blind or sap, blind can be used anytime. Sap is out of stealth, and just uses energy, which is nice. But when they come out of that CC effect, they have 30% reduced damage and healing for 6 seconds. So it's easier to just, especially if you're going to kill a mob that can be CC'd that hits really hard, just go in with a blind or a sap and then start the fight, and you'll be having to heal yourself less as things go on. Then for leveling, this whole column is just goated. It's really, really good. You're probably going to pick this for most rogue builds, but movement speed increased, super nice. Extra damage of your weapon poisons. You have poisons for all of them. Assassination has more poisons, but for the most part, you have extra ones. You will be picking up. I believe you can play with one of these two as with some of the builds, but for the most part, you can always have poisons on your weapons. And then all of these down here increase your maximum energy and regeneration. Like all this stuff just keeps you moving. Leech heals you up. This column here, I would recommend getting for your class leveling. Then for Assassination specifically, I would pick up Echoing Reprimand, and you would probably want to go with Reverberation. Just give you more damage, helps you kill big bursty targets. And then for Subtlety and for Outlaw, I keep wanting to say Combat because that's what it used to be called. I would pick up this column here, but you can see how since this is separated, there's not too much choice once you get past the top, but there are some nice benefits in here. So that is the class talent tree, the basic function. Let's go over the individual specializations. I'll give you some builds in the description that you can import into game to get picked up for each of them. And yeah, starting with Assassination. If you were to compare them, I would say Assassination is probably the weakest leveler of the three. Very cooldown based, and having to kill mobs repeatedly over long periods of time doesn't suit Assassination as well as some of the other specs. Outlaw is probably my favorite for leveling it in general, and Subtlety is pretty decent too. But Assassination, if you want to level it, you just have to be a little more careful with what you pull, when you pull it, and how you pace yourself out. But I'm all for people, you know, practice how you play, right? If you do want to play Assassination and you don't care about perfect efficiency while leveling, then we'll give you a leveling build for Assassination, and let's talk about it. Now, one issue you'll run into when leveling with Assassination is you're just going to have issue keeping up your combo points, and kind of like your Affliction Warlock, you're very dot based in most of your damage. So you're going to want to probably dot up a target, run away. As it dies, you can pick up another target. But one way you can manage your combo points, there's a few options here. One of those is going to be Marked for Death. This is a 30-second cooldown. You mark the target and you instantly generate 5 combo points, and it resets if the target dies within a minute, which is super useful. So you can just keep the combo points rolling, get some nice dots, and then run to the next target. You can also use Serrated Bone Spike, which is really useful. You Bone Spike the target while it's in, it does bleed damage, and if they die or leave combat, you can if they die, basically, it refunds a charge of it, and you get 1 combo point plus an additional per active Bone Spike. So as you're using these two together, you can manage up with your other abilities like Mutilate and Improve Garrote. You'll be able to manage your combo points in an even way. And then again, you'll probably want to be dotting up a target and then moving to the next target, letting that first one die, and then rolling with it as these abilities reset. Some free and easy dots you can put onto it in this tree specifically is you can use Internal Bleeding, which makes it so that when you use your kidney shot, you'll deal a nice little dot on it. It also stuns the target, which means they're just kind of there taking damage. And your bread and butter while leveling is pretty much going to be your Improved Garrote. So you can take Garrote and it increases the damage, and it has no cooldown when it's used from stealth. So a lot of times you'll come around, stealth up to the target, throw out the Garrote, and you'll actually get some nice ticking damage on that. You can even see how long this lasts, but it's a good amount of dot damage. And you can even, if they get in trouble, you can Kidney Shot, which will give Internal Bleeding. And these two together will start, ticking the target down, which is really useful. If you feel like the target isn't super dangerous, you can forego using the Kidney Shot with your Internal Bleeding and just go ahead and use Rupture. Super nice way to get a little dot, a big dot actually, depending on how many combo points you spend. And then those 3 dots together plus your normal attacks and spending will start building it up. If you don't have the ability to use things like Ambush out of stealth to build combo points, just use Mutilate. It's 50 energy. It'll give you some combo points, does a little bit of damage, which is pretty nice. And then if everything else is on cooldown, you don't have those dots going, then you can start playing around with Envenom, which is kind of one of your core abilities. Based on their combo points, you spend Envenom, you'll get a nice little bonus of damage on there, which is pretty cool. Now, keep in mind that as you're leveling, you'll want to experiment with how you spend your combo points, how you build your combo points. This will give you a nice feel for how the class works, and you'll get a nice kind of flow on what you spend things on when your combo points show up, especially for Assassination, actually. I mean, you get extra combo points here in Outlaw and over, but for the most part, it'll kind of give you a nice feeling of going into stealth, coming out of stealth, spending your combo points, building combo points, getting all of that going. For AoE pulls, it's going to be a little bit harder with Assassination, but if you do get the chance to AoE, your 2 main usages are going to be Crimson Tempest, is your kind of your big AoE, and then you have your Phantom Knives as well. This will award a combo point. A little bit of energy usage, but it's nice to just kind of move around and get some extra damage out of the Phantom Knives, build up, and then you can spend with Crimson Tempest, which gets those combo points spent and gets you a nice AoE as well. So if you get the chance to AoE, maybe you have some cooldowns up, you know, you have your evasion up, or you have Cloak Shadows if there's a lot of magic damage. You can pop those, pull, and then do some AoE with Crimson Tempest. And for big enemies, your big spenders are, well, it's not really a spender, Shiv is going to be a big part. This one is a 25-second cooldown energy, but the big part is that it increases the nature damage you do against the target for 8 seconds. So you'll walk in, you'll use the Shiv, you'll keep that target marked, get the bonus on it, and then your big cooldown is Death Mark, which carves your mark into the enemy, deals bleed damage, and while marked, your Garrow, Rupture, and lethal poisons applied to target are duplicated, dealing 100% normal damage. So you get the bonus nature damage, you apply the Death Mark, and then you just go ham, applying all of your poisons, build everything up onto the target, and that's it. And that's basically how Assassination goes. For leveling, you probably want to kind of finish out this corner here. Blindside, super nice, gives you free ambush and mutilate on rotation as well. And when the targets get low, you get bonus damage for finishing off mobs. So this kind of like trio here can be pretty useful. But for the most part, this is the build. If you're looking for Assassination, you want to level that, you certainly can. Use the link down in the description, the comment in the description, and take this little string, put it in game, and give it a name, and you've got yourself a build. Now let's move on to my favorite rogue spec, Outlaw. This one is relatively new. Like I said, within the last 5 years or so, this kind of got completely reworked and created this new spec that involves playing some RNG, having some range attacks, and some bonuses and some effects, but I think it just feels very dynamic to play in general. Now, you won't have two charges of Shadow Step, like your 2 other specs will, but to make up for that lack of mobility, you have something that neither of the other specs have, which is Grappling Hook. So you'll be able to grapple into targets and use your Shadow Step, plus, you know, your sprint and other things to keep up with mobility. It's definitely, I would say, a better leveling experience than Assassination, just because you have decent, reliable AoE that doesn't have as many caveats to it. You're not as dot-based, which means you have to wait for mobs to die. You can kill them up front with nice burst, and it's got some nice flexibility as well. Just like Assassination, you'll probably want to play around with Marked for Death. Super nice ability for leveling, because you'll be killing a lot, resetting it, getting free combo points. Super nice, we like that. And gives a good flow for it. But otherwise, the initial start of the combat can be very similar. You can get some ambush for extra points and play around that. But then once you're out of stealth, obviously you can still use, you know, Kidney Shot if you're in trouble, like we do with Assassination. Evasion is there if you need it. You can Cloak of Shadows if you need it. That sort of thing. But the gameplay itself changes once you're in combat. Your big cooldown is Adrenaline Rush. This increases your energy regeneration rate by 60% and your maximum energy by 50% and your attack speed. But wait, there's more. With Outlaw, you're actually going to be making good use of Slice and Dice as well. So as you get yourself some nice combo points, you'll build those up, and then you'll be able to spend Slice and Dice, which gives you attack speed. On top of your Adrenaline Rush, you can get some real serious movement, attack speed, and you know, some real big thrills coming out of it as well. And those 2 combinations plus the Grappling Hook, I think, makes for a nice leveling experience. The big gimmick for Outlaw is Roll the Bones. So you will roll the bones, and it will give you some benefit for a period of time. It's a random benefit, a random bonus. It can be useful for what you're doing or something different. It's all buffs, so you don't have to worry about you know, negatives. But for the most part, you just have to play around, roll the bones. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But that's going to be part of your gameplays. If you don't currently have an enhancement up, so like mine just fell off right here, we're going to pop Roll the Bones. Boom, it's going to come out. And then we're going to get a critical chance of Between the Eyes increased, and critical chance of all of the abilities increased by 15%. So now we have more crit. We want to be using Between the Eyes more often because we get that bonus. But if you don't have one, part of your rotation is just rolling the bones to see what you get and playing off of that. But just make sure you always have a buff up. Then you have a really easy AoE ability with Blade Flurry. This will strike up to 8 targets. If you have 2 or more targets, as long as there's more than 1, use Blade Flurry. It's super easy. You'll get a nice little bonus from it. It'll be affected by some of your buffs as well, which is nice. But just pop this up if you have more than 1 target at any point. And then from there, just build up your combat points, spend your energy, and make sure you maintain slice and dice. Never let slice and dice fall off. You want attack speed from this at all times. It makes your whole build function better. Then your next buff is going to come from between the eyes. So this is an ability that will give you crit chance against the target based on and the length of that buff is based on the combo points that you spend. So just make sure that you have, you have a couple buffs. You roll the bones, make sure you get a buff from that. Pop your slice and dice, you have a buff from that. Then pop your between the eyes, so you have a buff from that. And you put all those together and you got yourself a nice little bonus, and you'll start just shredding through targets. You'll also want to be using your Blade Rush. It's a 45-second cooldown, but it is a nice little dash, and it gives you a little bonus of damage as well. So use your Blade Rush on top of your grappling hook so you can zoom around and get some bonus from there. And then you also want to Opportunity. Be aware of Opportunity as well. So your core, if you have nothing else to do, is to use your Builder Sinister Strike. But this has a chance when you Sinister Strike. Right there, we get the proc of Opportunity. Your next pistol shot costs less energy and deals bonus damage. So you can start using your pistol shot and get some bonus out of that. So just, if you have nothing else to do, spam Sinister Strike, get those combo points up, spend it on getting your slice and dice up. You can spend with Dispatch as well. Nice way to get damage. Make sure you have the buff from slice and dice. You have the buff from roll the bones. You have the buff from between the eyes, and then build up combo points. Use your spenders there. And if you just want to go ham, pop Adrenaline Rush and just burn down targets. Be aware that you do have Restless Blades. I think if you're leveling, you really want Restless Blades. All this does is that every time you spend a combo point, it resets the cooldown of your ability. So again, you get your crazy attack speed, movement speed, and then as you're spending combo points, your abilities are starting to reset their own cooldown, which affects grappling hook, by the way. So you're able to grapple more and more and use that. So as you spend combo points, it starts to get faster and faster, and I've always liked that kind of play style. As you level, I don't really think you need Keep It Rolling. This is really useful for extended combat engagements. You're not going to use it much for leveling. So I would just come down here on either side. You already are getting, Fan the Hammer, come down, get Greenskins, Wickers, and then maybe even come down to Hidden Opportunity if you want, which is nice, and it just kind of makes everything flow. You'll probably get these by the time you're like reaching 70, but just be aware these are here and they're pretty easy to pick up. So that's the basics of it. Keep your buffs flowing, keep your bonuses going. If there's AoE opportunities, use your Blade Flurry, use your dash in, and then you're just spending combo points. Play around with it, see what buffs suit you most, and still make sure you're using, Iron Stomach is useful. You can just keep yourself alive with your Crimson Vial, Vanish, you can use your Evasion, things like that. And yeah, have fun, enjoy. Lastly, let's talk about Subtlety. If you like the, I want to say Assassin playstyle, because it's more kind of jumping in from stealth, but it isn't Assassination. It's not poison and dot based. This is more about being in stealth, and there's a lot of really cool ways to get into stealth, get out of stealth, and get some nice bonuses, and you'll see some big numbers too, which makes Subtlety, I think, a fun option if you're leveling and beyond. If you're looking for this build, you can just find the string in the description, copy it, import it, put it in the game, give it a name, and boom, you're ready to go. But let's talk about Subtlety, some basics for the class, or for the spec, and what to look for in the tree. Starting with your opener, this is gonna be your bread and butter, Shadow Strike. This is Subtlety in a nutshell. Make sure you're in stealth, and as you are near the target, you can pop in, you can use your Shadow Strike. But what's great about Shadow Strike is you'll deal damage to the target, and then you'll blink to the target, but it also awards 3 combo points. So super useful for beginning the battle, getting in there and start doing some damage to the target. Very, very useful. So start with Shadow Strike, and that kind of gets you into the next part. On top of that, you're gonna want to re-enter stealth with every break of combat. There's a few reasons for that. You have a lot of benefits coming out of stealth. There's also premeditation. After entering stealth, your next Shadow Strike grants up to 10 seconds of slice and dice, which, remember from our Outlaw build, is our attack speed. So super cool. You can just enter stealth, use your Shadow Strike, and then you can see we get a free slice and dice without having to spend the combo points on it. So getting this up, a lot of times you can have the mob dead by the time this buff ends. Super good. So just be entering stealth as much as you all possibly can. Save Vanish, although you can get 2 stacks of it. Save Vanish for when you get into trouble or you really need to enter stealth again in a pinch. but just remember you have that. Now, obviously, being a stealth-specific specialization, you're not going to be able to be in stealth in combat, in theory. But there is a way to play around that, right? And it's kind of core to the gameplay of Subtlety. So your big thing, and we talked about this earlier, but Shadow Dance is something at the bottom of the class talent tree that allows the use of stealth abilities when you're in combat. However, it comes for free with Subtlety since you are stealth specialization. So you're going to have periods of your rotation that you're doing outside of Shadow Dance, which means that you kind of have to play around not being able to use stealth abilities, and then periods of your rotation that are in Shadow Dance. If you want to, since you do get Shadow Dance for free here, if you come down and get it again, it means you have 2 charges of it. I would recommend getting improved Shadow Dance here, which means that you're going to extend the duration of Shadow Dance. Super useful. So you'll have your opener, you'll build up your points, you'll be attacking, and then from there, you can use your Shadow Dance to extend your combat by allowing you to use stealth abilities in combat. But what's cool about Subtlety is most of the mobs you fight won't live very long. If you just start with Shadow Strike, you'll get the Slice and Dice for free, so don't spend combo points on that. And then you're going to be using Rupture for a nice dot damage, or Eviscerate to finish off the target. So as you go into stealth, you pop your Shadow Strike, you got the extra combo points, you build that up, and then you can Rupture, and then, you know, by the time this ticks a few times, most mobs will be dead. So you'll be able to play off of that. But if the mob isn't dead, it's like an elite that you're fighting, you have a couple options that you can play around with. Obviously, Shadow Dance is the next step to keep yourself using stealth abilities, and one of your big cooldowns is Secret Technique. So when you use this, based on the number of combo points that you spend, you will create clones of yourself, which is super cool. So when you activate that, you get a nice little bonus to it, and it will actually mirror some of the things that you do. Now, when you're doing single target, I wouldn't use Secret Technique inside of your Shadow Dance because I think there's better uses for it. This does have an AoE component too, which is nice. So good for AoE cleaving. But if you're doing single target and you're inside Shadow Dance, like you did use Shadow Strike opener, and you're in Shadow Dance, you can just use your Shadow Strike because you're technically in stealth, and then just use it on Eviscerate for spending, or you can get, if the Rupture is not ticking, then you can go ahead and do that. But you can just keep using Shadow Strike into Eviscerates, burst damage, and if the target's still alive and you are done with Shadow Dance, then you can move on to using things like Secret Technique, or if you have AoE. Also for AoE pulls, you will be running Black Powder, and you also do have your Shuriken Storm. So you'll be able to do this, the Shuriken Storm, just to get some nice AoE damage and get some bonus combo points on that. You have your AoE from Secret Technique, and then you have your AoE from Black Powder as well, which is super nice. Based on combo points spent, you'll get a nice little extra bonus there, and you can actually start burning down some decent level mobs. If you have Evasion up, or you have Cloak of Shadows against magic enemies, or you have some decent CC, it's a good way to just kind of build up the combo points and spend them. I think Subtlety is super fun for leveling as well, just because you kind of have the ability to, you know, go into your Shadow Dance, start spamming, dumping, doing all of that. You have some minor cooldowns that you can use. Symbols of Death, I would just use this every time it's up. It just gives you energy, and it gives you a little bit of damage bonus. So after you do your opener and you got your points spent, you got your Rupture going, if you wanted to use Mark for Death, you can pop that up as well. And then right before you go into your Shadow Dance portion, that's when you can start using your basic cooldowns like Symbols of Death, just to make sure that you have a little bit of bonus damage going into that. For spending wise, you can aim for 4 to 5 combo points for Black Powder. I think efficiency is like right at 5. In some cases, you don't really need the extra from 6, but if you have 6, right, you're just doing your Shuriken Storm, you have full, you pop, you go, then you have your Black Powder, and you just keep building it up. Right, that's kind of like the bonus there. Backstab, or if you're running Gloomblade, a Gloomblade replaces Backstab, is really just for building combo points. Super nice, just a really easy way to kind of get combo points up if you need it, especially if it's only single target. It's not really as worth to be just spamming Shuriken Storm. So you can just kind of use Gloomblade to build that up. Then as you get more points, you can come down here. Like you said, down here you can maybe even pick up Shadow Dance 2-stack if you really enjoy using Shadow Dance. You can even have more Shadow Dance modifiers with Dance Macabre, which gives you bonus damage, which is really cool. You can also come down here and get Dark Brew. It gives you more shadow damage and makes all your attacks do shadow damage, which is nice. Finality is also a good pickup, but that's basically it. That is that's Subtlety. It's super bursty, it's super fun. I think there's a nice fun mini game around playing around coming out of stealth and then being in combat and using Shadow Dance to pretend like you're in stealth and do stealth effects. And then having an extra blink on top of that with Shadow Strike is super cool. And again, because you have Shadow Step in your spec tree, you can get both Shadow Steps, which Outlaw can't do this, but then you'll get two uses of the Shadow Step plus the blink that you already have from Shadow Strike. So you may not have a grapple, but you definitely have ways to get around. And that is it for the Rogue Starter Guide. I tried my best to not go into too much depth with any of this. This is more just a starter point for people that are jumping to Rogue, they're switching to Rogue, or they're playing Rogue in Dragonflight. If you enjoyed this guide, leave me a like down below. Comment down below if there's other guides you'd like to see from me. I'd like to make more for you guys. So if there's anything you have questions on, definitely let me know in the comments. Or if you have any questions that I can answer for you live, you'll find me live every day, twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by, ask your questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them. And otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Good luck with your drops. Good luck with your grind. I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content. Link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.